Hi everyone, my name is Alicia Cofield. I'm here today with Miss Martua and Miss Messmer. This is for our Psych Show. Today we will be talking about stress and anxiety within teens today. So I'm going to go right into the questions. For our first question, I just want to clarify, what is stress?
So stress is a response to a challenging situation, whether it's at home or it's at school, like a deadline of a project that's coming up. That building up of stress of worrying about having to get it done and the time management and things like that is what stress is.
Yeah, the stressors. So what is anxiety?
So anxiety is a reaction of the stress. So when it's building up and it's a persistent thought and you're always thinking about that, the stress and having to do something, the consistent worrying about it is when it becomes anxiety and when it's consuming all of your thoughts.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that anxiety is more consuming than stress, like anxiety pushes on you more than stress does. That's what you're saying?
Yep, and it impacts you a little more on how you complete tasks and things like that. Has more of an impact.
Okay, so
And also, stress can be also positive too. There's a good way. Sometimes it propels people forward to get things done. So it's both good and bad in some circumstances.
So like, can you give me an example of like a positive?
A positive stressor?
Yes.
Your boss says, you know, I know you're really good at this. You got this. Why don't you work on this project? And I know it's a lot. I know we have these stumbling blocks here, but you got this. It's going to be great. So you're nervous about it and you're stressed, but you come out on top. Once you embrace some of those challenges that stress presents, people do very well.
So
Not everybody.
Just using that pressure to then
Right.
excel yourself and turn it
Exactly.
around and do better.
Precisely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know that you did answer this a little bit. What do you think are the main causes for stress and the main causes for anxiety?
So within teens, I think the most prevalent to them is schoolwork, having to complete assignments and things like that, the pressure of college and things like that, all of the expectations that you have at school. And then you also have outside stressors like home life, like what's going on at home, whether your parents are going through a divorce or whether you're in a fight with a sibling, something like that is happening. And then also you have the friend aspect of it, the social media aspect of it, the looking on Instagram and seeing that all your friends are here but you weren't invited, so why did that happen?
Yeah.
So all of that, all of that adds to a teen's stress.
So
and
basically just life.
right, right.
Well, and if you turn on the news today, it's not all positive information. There are school shootings and problems in government, and so there's a lot of external stressors now.
Yeah.
And the rate in which we get information from social media is much faster than it used to be, and how we problem solve is a little bit different.
Now, I just want to see this from your perspective. Why do you think that teens today get so stressed out and they build up anxiety from social media and all that? Why do you think that?
Well, I think a lot of the times that everything is so external that you get this bombardment very quickly on social media. You get news rapidly. And I think a lot of times you have to go inside yourself for quiet, shut everything down.
Yeah.
Problem solve yourself. Do you really like the people you're eating lunch with? Do you get to know yourself a little bit better in your likes and dislikes? And high school is finding out what you like and what you don't like, your creativity. So going inside, taking those externals and just putting them away, putting them on the shelf and having that quiet time.
Yeah, taking that time out for yourself.
And just to add to that, comparing yourself. So you're always on social media, comparing yourself to others and what others are doing. Oh, that person got an A on something, why didn't I? So the stress of having to do things like that and just feeling always like you're comparing when before social media you didn't know what that person got or what they were doing. So it's just that added layer.
Okay. Now, so I'm going to ask this question. Can you self-diagnose anxiety? I'm asking this because you see a lot of teens today, they just instantly, oh, I have anxiety, without going to a psychologist, a doctor, or anything. Yeah. So do you think that you can self-diagnose?
You certainly can. People do at the nail salon or everywhere.
I think that you can have anxiety about something, like say, oh, I have a lot of anxiety about something coming up. But when it becomes a disorder is when it's constantly affecting you and constantly having those thoughts. So someone could have anxiety about something for some topic for a short amount of time, but then when we start talking about anxiety disorders, that's when you would be more looking at a diagnosis.
Okay.
And when I would recommend going to a therapist
Yeah.
and having them diagnose you versus you looking on Google and saying, oh, like I really was having all of those
Yeah.
symptoms that they say online, and now I have anxiety.
Yeah.
So I think the term is really overused
Yeah, it
when
is.
someone, but maybe it's just stress that they're having, and it's definitely overused. But you can diagnose. You can say you have anxiety. You
Yeah,
can't
so
have
you
an
can say
anxiety
that
disorder.
you have anxiety. So what you're saying is you could say that you have anxiety about a certain thing,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't say that you actually have like the disorder anxiety.
Right, without having some kind of
Like, yeah.
diagnosis.
Okay. Okay, so from your perspective, do you see this, like, is this most common in teens, or is like this widely spread out throughout adults or kids or anything in other groups?
I mean, everyone can have anxiety. It becomes a little different when you're older. Like you have work anxiety,
Yeah.
family, like when you start having kids, like there's different kinds of anxiety. What you're having anxiety about might change, but I think it exists with everyone. Is it higher in
But
teens?
if you could say like a certain group, like if you think about a group of people who like is which anxiety is most common, like which
Or more vulnerable.
vulnerable,
I
more-
think students are vulnerable today because of all the external, the social media, and the decisions you have to make, and the maturity levels. And there's a lot coming at you at this age. So you could say that, but usually an anxiety disorder will impact the way you function too. It prevents you from doing your job or driving a car or whatever the circumstances.
Okay. So, does stress lead to anxiety, or does anxiety lead to stress? Are they the same? Are they different? Because a lot of teens or people in general, they get it mixed up, or they include stress and anxiety together. They make it separate. So there isn't much distinction between the two. So I just want to know from your perspective. Yeah. Sorry.
So stress leads to anxiety. So it could start out as stress and then it could lead to anxiety. They are different in that stress isn't keeping you from doing your everyday life. Like you might change a little bit or you're thinking about it, but it's not going to change, it's not going to impact you as much as if you had anxiety about it. It keeps you from doing things. So for example, if you're stressed about an upcoming test, you might not sleep as much. But if you have anxiety about that test, then you're going to be thinking about it all the time.
And there's another test, and you build up in your mind.
Right, and you're like, you have negative thoughts about it. So stress is more just a feeling that you have in the moment, but then the anxiety is when it's building up and
you can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
So your ego or your mind just keeps going and going and going. That's why that shutting down is really important, that quiet time.
So if I would ask you, like, what is a treatment for stress, your answer would be, like, just taking that time to yourself and calming yourself down?
Meditation. Taking cooling, working out. I mean, working out and, being involved in activities, sports.
So basically just finding an outlet for yourself.
it could be hanging out with friends, it could be watching Netflix, it could be sleeping, like whatever your outlet is. Everyone's different, what helps them relieve stress.
Right, there is that mind-body connection. If you, take care of yourself, calm yourself down, get exercise, and, do something a little bit different to shake it instead of thinking, you're continually thinking about the stressor.
Okay.
Those are options.
Just calming your mind down. I get it. Do you guys think that anxiety leads to other mental disorders?
It can.
It can. Have you ever saw it before, like personally?
Well, it depends on the background of the student or adult and the trauma in the background. you know, different circumstances. Everybody has different circumstances. You know, you have immigration, deportation, and you have incarceration. You know, you have all these factors in different people's lives that, they're stressors.
Now, so you say that it can. Do you have like a specific mental disorder that it can lead to? Like, do you have like an idea like of like a certain disorder that it could lead to? Like possibly like maybe like eating disorders. I don't know. Anything specific?
I don't know if it's really linked to it. It can snowball into that, but I don't think they're necessarily it depends on the personality.
Yeah. So
and how they're problem solving.
There's no actual like, you can't tell like specifically until like you understand that person. That's what you're saying?
Right, right. You get to know their background, their history, and sometimes one thing leads to another. It works out that way, but not always. And some you know, teens don't become, you know, schizophrenia. Isn't diagnosed until, 19, 20. Yeah. It comes on in college, not necessarily in at the high school level, but not always.
Okay. So I just have, I'm wondering, how can I support or how can I help a stressed friend or a friend with anxiety? Because a lot of people these days, they do have a lot of friends who have disorders, anxiety disorders, nervousness, and it is hard sometimes to help because sometimes you don't know what to do. So how do you think that one can help someone with that?
Well, it depends. I guess it depends what they've tried before. There's always adults at the high school that are willing to help and provide the student with resources.
Yeah, and if you're just looking to get their mind off of something, I think that often helps as well. So if they're stressed about something or they're anxious about something, just being like, hey, you want to go for a walk or you want to go do something just to kind of get their mind off of it. And honestly, just sitting there and talking to them and listening to them is such a big help. I think it's just nice to have someone here, yeah, and just listening to what you're saying. So just giving them that support in that way, although you might not feel like you're doing a lot, it is really helpful to them and what they're dealing with.
Okay, so just throwing out a possibility, not a possibility, but more so of a real world example. So say if I myself personally have I have very high stress levels or I have a lot of anxiety, I tell my mom about it or go up to my parents. They just say like, oh, like you're just overreacting, get over it. Like what steps should someone take after that when they realize like their family is not there for them, which would lead on to more stress and anxiety. So what do you think that someone should do after that?
It's a hard thing to deal with because then you kind of feel like, oh, maybe my stress isn't real, but you're feeling something inside. So I think maybe at that point reaching out to someone else a trusted adult, whether it's someone in the school that has more maybe an understanding of what teens are going through, like a counselor, a psychologist, a teacher that you trust that maybe has more resources and more understanding of what teens go through. Anything to add to that?
No, that's about right.
Okay. How can anxiety or stress affect one over time?
Well, I think, well, if you don't find proper mechanisms to deal with it, it can, you can get lethargic, overeat, become depressed if you don't learn to deal with situations suitably.
So it'll tie into more problems, more disorders?
Snowball into
Like, for example, if you're having anxiety about social aspects of your life and then it's causing you to not go to the party because you have social anxiety about being around there, everybody. Being around everyone. It's impacting your life of being able to do fun things that you want to do and you're worrying about things that aren't something you really need to be worrying about. So being able to recognize that and getting help, I think, is a good thing to do.
Okay. So where can someone go to get help for either stress or anxiety? Like anywhere, parent, actual psychologist. I know that we have been spouting this out throughout the whole interview, but just to get a general understanding, where can someone go to get help?
So at school, there's a lot of resources. The best one, I think, is just letting a teacher that you trust and have that relationship with already. I think it's more of a comfort thing for you. You might feel a little more open to going out to someone that you already have that relationship with. And then they can refer out to one of the guidance counselors or the school psychologist or put you in touch with someone that can really help you. But if it's something that's really happening right now and you want immediate help, you could go to the guidance counselor, the psychologists who are always around. I think we have social workers now. So there's a lot of supports in place at school, that people that really care about our students and want to help you and have the resources and things that can help you deal with those things. But it's not something that we would sit down and we would fix in one day. It would be more talking about the strategies that you can use, working through what we have done in the past with students or what we think is helpful, and seeing if that works for them. Because not every strategy is going to work with every student. So.
Okay. All right. I just want to thank you guys for coming today.
Thank you for having us.
You guys have spotted out a lot of information, a lot of information that a lot of people can use. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It was nice to meet you guys. Nice to talk with you.
Thank you. And if anybody needs anything, my email is mmAurtua@nasd.k12.pa.us.
And I am MEMESSMER@NASD.k12.pa.us. And I am in room 221 all day, every day. So if you ever need anything, I am there.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you guys for watching today. My name is Alicia Cofield, and this is our Psych Show.